So this is a real gem here, a real piece of Black history, Central Florida Black history. I moved to the United States in 1989 and I came to Orlando. I've always lived in Orlando since I got here. But I came as a midwife, and so I was always very annoyed and perplexed as to why midwifery wasn't more common in the United States where it is around the rest of the world. And as I learned and understood the history, I realized no, midwifery was, of course, very common in the United States because truly women attending women in birth is what has happened since time began and has always been midwives attending women in birth. And I learned about the history of the African midwives and during enslavement, and then of course the Black midwives, the American Black midwives who delivered essentially America after enslavement ended and through the Jim Crow era, right up until some of them were still working in the 1960s, 1970s. But what's been hidden from our history is the impact that the Black midwives, so-called granny midwives, we call them grand midwives, the contribution to the American story. These women you could always find a midwife. Every town, every city, every area, every hamlet, rural, urban, it didn't matter. There was a Black midwife and everybody knew who that midwife was. And typically they delivered both Black and white communities because people had their babies at home. And so sure enough, took me a while, but I found out about the Orlando Black midwife, Mary Jane Johnson. And there were others, but I know the story of Mary Jane Johnson now, and I am thrilled to know it. I'm proud to know it. And learning about what she did, we do have some historical archives of her work, and she was also the home where she lived on Bruton Boulevard, which is still there to this day, has now been named a historic site. And this is such exciting news, especially given the fact that up until now, most people who are currently in Orlando don't realize that that's the home where so many people, Black people in Orlando, were born. She not only went to other people's homes to help deliver their babies, but she delivered babies in her own home in the upstairs attic. And her son, who is still alive, and he's elderly now, he's in Miami area, but he got in touch with me and shared with me the story of his mother and his memories of hearing the babies being born and the babies crying and his mother praying over the babies and the moms in his house, because whenever there was a mother laboring, him and his brothers were moved downstairs to accommodate so that the babies could be born right in the home. So this is not an unusual story because, like I said, every town, every area had their midwives, and they knew who their midwives were. And, obviously before the time of, phones and, communications and social media, when someone was in labor, some family member or neighbor was dispatched to go get the midwife. So everybody knew where the midwives lived. And the midwives serviced anybody. No one was turned away. So this is, to me, the most amazing information. So sad that this information isn't public knowledge like it should be. The goal now is to make it so. The designation as a historic home right here in Orlando has us very excited because the goal is to restore the home and have it be a museum. The yard still has many of the plants and herbs that Midwife Johnson used when she attended her families. And so those legacy plants are still in the garden, in the yard around the house. And her family, her grandchildren and her living children are keen to see this designation happen and to have the acknowledgement for what she did. She delivered, I believe they said, around 1,500 babies in Orange County. And also for me, as I thought I was the first Black midwife in Orange County, and I actually thought I had the first birthing center in Orange County. I've been licensed in the county since 2003. Midwife Mary Johnson had the very first birthing center on Bruton Boulevard. And if you haven't thought about it before, this is a good time to talk to your grandparents and your great-grandparents and ask them if they have memories of Midwife Mary Jane Johnson and her very famous black bag that she carried, and the fact that she delivered much of the community right there in her home.